Good afternoon, and welcome back to Stories with Don. Nice Tuesday day. I hope you had a good weekend and were able to get out and enjoy this beautiful weather we've been having, the nice cool mornings and warm afternoons. Anyway, let's get back to our story of Robin Hood, and today we are on chapter 18, and this is entitled Robin Hood Meets Maid Marian in the Forest. Now, while Robin Hood was leading his men in Sherwood Forest and living the life of a bold outlaw, his thoughts were often full of someone whom he had left behind in his old home. This was Maid Marian, the beautiful daughter of a great man whose house had stood near Robin's home. Robin Hood and Maid Marian had been close friends since childhood. They had played together, hunting for birds' nests, fishing in the brook, climbing trees or running races over the meadow grass. And when Robin was forced to go out into the world, he bore a sore heart with him after parting with Marian. Since Robin's departure, things had gone very hardly with Marian also. Her parents died, her friends proved unkind, and her heart often dwelt on the friend of her youth, bold, brave Robin. For a long time she did not know where he was, but at last his name began to ring through the North Country, and she knew that her old friend had become the renowned outlaw, of whose daring deeds minstrels sang, and of whom men talked as they sat about the evening fire. At last, lonely and friendless as she was, Maid Marian resolved to seek Robin in Sherwood Forest, and see if he still remembered the old happy days of their childhood. But she knew how unsafe it was for a woman to travel about the country alone, so she put on the dress of a page, and took quiver and bow, sword and buckler, and thus armed and disguised, she set out to seek Robin. At last she reached the skirts of the great forest, and as soon as she entered the dark shades of the mighty oaks, she looked eagerly forward to watch for the first sign of a forest dweller, who could direct her to the haunts of her old friend. As it happened, that very morning Robin had set out alone to make an expedition in search of news. He had taken great care to disguise himself, for his fate would be certain if he fell into the hands of the foresters. The sheriff, fuming with rage at the clever manner in which Robin had outwitted him and brought off the widow's sons, had given orders that every outlaw should be put to death upon capture, and no mercy whatever should be shown. So Robin went out in a ragged suit of coarse gray cloth, with a big hat down over his face, a huge patch over his left eye, and a tattered cloak huddled over his shoulders. He had been walking an hour or more when he saw the figure of a handsomely dressed stripling coming along the way toward him. Robin at once stepped out of sight behind a bush until he could be sure that the youth was alone. In those days it behooved him to be wary, so many and so fierce were his enemies. He suspected some trap or stratagem at the sight of every stranger. But the youth came on with a quick, even step, and seemed to be entirely alone. Just as he was passing the bush behind which Robin stood, the outlaw sprang out and commanded him to stop. "Who art thou, and what dost thou want in Sherwood?" demanded Robin Hood. The stranger was Maid Marian, and she looked at Robin and never dreamed that her old friend stood before her in the person of this wild, ragged man of the woods. She thought it was some savage freebooter who would plunder her, and she sprang back and laid her hand upon her sword. "This is not one of Robin's men," thought Maid Marian. "This is some footpad who I must meet boldly or be undone." So she said, "Stand aside, fellow, and let me go on my way. I have naught to do with thee." "Aye, but I may have something to do with thee," replied the tattered stranger. "Tell me whither and why thou goest through the forest, or I must turn thee back." "Turn me back," said the page. "Thou wilt never do, rude man. Pay me not to the need of drawing sword in my defense, or thou mayst well rue the day." "Why, this is a brave youth," laughed Robin Hood, And what wouldst thou do with that pretty little bodkin of thine, youngster? 'Tis a bodkin that thou mayst find over sharp, said the page, and drew the glittering blade from its sheath and waved it on high. Give way, for I seek the heart of the forest, and none shall check me. When Robin heard that the newcomer was bound for the depths of Sherwood, his suspicions grew fast. It seemed to him that a bold, smart lad such as this was just the person the sheriff might send as a spy, and he became resolved to turn the page back. Nay, said Robin, I bid you return. Seek your safety and leave the forest, or I shall be compelled to draw also. Draw in thou wilt, cried the other, but go back I will not. The sight of my blade will frighten a mere lad like this, thought Robin, and he drew out his sword and sprang forward and made a lunge as if in fierce attack. But to his surprise, the lunge was deftly turned aside, and the slender page met him as boldly with sword and buckler as ever Robin had been met with in his life. Clash, clash went their swords as the keen blades grated together, but Robin did not put out the whole of his strength and skill against a mere lad like this, so the combat lasted much longer than it would otherwise have done. Nor was the page at all unskilled in sword play, for on one occasion Robin's guard was passed and he received a small wound in the face. The outlaw became full of admiration for this brave young opponent and tried to make a peaceful ending to their fray. Hold thy hand, said Robin Hood, and thou shalt range the forest with bold Robin Hood, and hear the sweet song of the nightingale. What? Screamed the page. Robin Hood, and are you indeed Robin Hood? And oh, Robin, I have hurt you. I knew you not, Robin. The outlaw stared in surprise at the figure before him. Why, who art thou? He said, and why should it trouble thee that I am hurt? I came hither to seek you, Robin, cried the page, but never dreamed that I should meet you in this guise. And Robin, don't you know me? Robin stood for a few moments in greater wonder still at the fair blushing face. Then memory rose like a flood. I know you, he cried. I know you now. You are Maid Marian, dearest Marian. How came you here? I came to seek you, Robin, she replied, for I have no friend in the world but you, and I knew you not and have wounded you. Tush, that is nothing, said Robin. We get many shrewder cuts and knocks in the greenwood, and as for not knowing me, that is no wonder, for I am disguised, lest my enemy, the Sheriff of Nottingham, should seize me. The two friends now sat down on a mossy bank near at hand and fell into talk, telling each other how their lives had passed since their separation. And do you have room for me in the greenwood, Robin? Asked Maid Marian. Aye, and proud to see you there, Marian, cried the outlaw. Come, we will seek the wife of Allan a Dale, and she will gladly take you under her care. And here is a picture of Maid Marian and Robin and the wife of Allan a Dale meeting. So they set off together and sought the hidden glade where the band had formed their camp. And right welcome did the wife of Allan a Dale make Maid Marian, and right merry was the feast which was held at that evening. Little John and Will Scarlet went off at once with their bows, and killed a brace of fat bucks, and a joyous feast was held in honor of Maid Marian's coming to the greenwood. The yeomen formed a jovial ring around a vast fire of oaken billets, and ate their fill of the sweet venison, and washed it down with flagons of wine and brimming bowls of nut-brown ale. And so Maid Marian came to Sherwood, and reigned as queen of the forest revels. And that is the end of that chapter. And so now we have Maid Marian in the mix also. Anyway, I hope you have a good rest of the day. May you be well, and may God bless you. Goodbye.